Welcome back to Edible Architect. I'm Patrick McConville, and today I'll be walking you through baking a cookie cottage using an original brownie brittle cookie recipe and our Edible Architect Cottage 2 cookie cutter construction set. So when you're ready to start making your dough, grab your ingredients or building materials, and I will join you back here in the kitchen. To make our brownie brittle cookie, we will need the following ingredients. First, our unsalted butter. Next, our granulated sugar, our 2 room temperature egg whites, our vanilla extract, and then I have whisked together our cake flour, cocoa powder, salt, and baking soda. So you will need all of those ingredients, and this recipe can be found on ediblearchitect.com/recipes, along with all of our other recipes, all fit for making cookie houses. To begin, you want to take your room temperature butter and add it to your bowl, whether it be the bowl of a stand mixer or the bowl that you'll be using with a hand mixer. And add your butter and your sugar, as well as your vanilla. And then blend that together until all of the sugar has been creamed into the butter. Next, you'll want to add your egg whites one at a time to that butter mixture, adding well after each addition. Okay, and once you've added those 2 egg whites to your mixture, you can begin to incorporate your flour mixture. And you want to do that in roughly 1/4 cup increments and add it until it has all been combined. And you should end up with a dough that sticks together but is a bit crumbly. And once your dough is mixed together, it should look something like that. So a crumbly dough, but one that will come together when you squeeze it. And then you want to turn that out onto your surface and knead it together, and then roll it into 2 balls and wrap each ball with plastic wrap. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and either use your dough right away or put it in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours in advance. So I'm going to go ahead, I will knead this, I will roll it into balls, wrap it in plastic, and then come back when we're ready to start rolling out our cookie pieces. When you're ready to begin rolling out your dough and cutting out your pieces, first preheat your oven to 375 degrees and line a few cookie sheets with parchment paper. You will also want to assemble everything that you'll need in order to cut out your cookie pieces. First, you will need a rolling pin, and I do recommend these rolling pin bands because you want to aim for a 1/8 inch thickness for your cookies in order to get a nice, crisp, and clean result. These are available online or at any baking goods store. Cake flour in order to dust your parchment paper and other surfaces that you'll be working on. Tools in order to pry any cutouts from the openings for windows and doors, for example. And then I do have a few cookie cutters here because I will be cutting out little cookies that I will be pressing nuts into and then baking and then applying to the house for decoration, because then you can pull those cookies off and you can eat them. So I have a few square cookie cutters here that I'll be using to cut those out. And then of course I have my Edible Architect cookie cutter construction set. This is one of our launch edition sets. It is Cottage 2, and it's a really nice, versatile, simple design. You'll want to take your waterproof blueprints out of the kit because that will provide you with your build plan on the back page, which will help you to assemble your house, all of the parts that you'll need, and you will want to make sure that you make 2 of every piece for this house because everything requires a duplicate. And without further ado, of course, inside your kit is your Cottage 2 cookie cutter construction set. And you'll see that it's a really cute contemporary looking cottage that we will decorate with what will look like brownie cookie pieces at the end. So go ahead, gather everything, and then you can begin rolling out your dough. And you'll want to, again, roll it out in a very thin 1/8 inch consistency, cut out all of your pieces, and then you can press anything you might like to impart into the dough before baking. So there are a lot of different ways that you can go with this recipe. You can choose, for example, to press mini chocolate chips or crushed nuts throughout every surface and create kind of a snickerdoodle type cookie. You can also choose to press any nuts or candies into the royal icing when you go to use royal icing in order to put the house together so that you have a nice detail that way. You can use chocolate royal icing or raspberry royal icing or peppermint royal icing. So there are so many different ways that you can go. I am going to bake plain cookies, and then I will bake separate cookies using these square cookie cutters that I will then decorate with some crushed nuts and maybe a few chocolate chips. And then I will take those baked cookies and with royal icing, I'll stick them on the house. As far as royal icing goes for today, I'm just going to use traditional plain royal icing, so just white royal icing. But feel free to experiment because this recipe would taste great with any configuration you can think of. So I will begin cutting out my pieces and then pop them in the oven, and you'll want to bake everything for 10 to 12 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but you definitely just want to make sure that you monitor it because they're thin cookies and you don't want anything to burn. Once everything has been baked, cool it for about 10 minutes and then come back and we'll begin discussing our assembly. While you wait for your baked pieces to cool, you can make your mortar or royal icing. To do that, you'll need your 3 room temperature egg whites and your confectioner sugar mixed with your cream of tartar, which I have whisked together to make sure that I have a uniform composition. And then I also have a pastry bag here, which is what I will be putting the icing into so I can pipe it onto the house. You can also use a Ziploc bag, just cut out the corner if you don't have pastry bags, but you can get them online, they're super cheap. And when you're ready to start your mortar, you can take your room temperature egg whites and add them to either the bowl of your stand mixer or to the bowl if you're using a hand mixer. And then you want to whisk those on high for 2 to 3 minutes until they're nice and foamy. And my egg whites are pretty foamy, so I will begin adding my powdered sugar mixture. And you want to add that in roughly 1/4 cup increments until you have fully incorporated it into your bowl mixture. And then at that point, you want to switch your mixer to high and then beat until you achieve the proper consistency, which will usually take about 5 minutes or so, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. If you're using a hand mixer, it will definitely take a few extra minutes, so hang in there. But you definitely want to make sure that you do not have a runny texture to your mortar. Otherwise, your house will not hold together, your pieces will fall and they'll break. So go ahead and start adding your mixture, mix that all together, and then once you have the right consistency, come back and we will add it to our piping bag. Once your icing reaches a texture where you can push it through a pastry bag or a Ziploc bag, but it is not too thin that it won't hold the house together, you can go ahead and with a spatula add it to your pastry bag. And we have our royal icing. So it looks like that texture will work to put the house together. So you can go ahead and at this stage, grab everything that you will need in order to begin putting your house together. So that will be the platform, the mortar, and then your baked cookie pieces. And then join me back here and we'll start putting everything together. When you're ready to begin building, first take all of your baked cookie pieces. Again, you should have 2 of everything for the cottage to design. So here you can see we have all of our pieces baked, and I did not press any chocolate chips or any nuts or candies into the dough when I baked the walls and roofs of the house, but I did bake some extra cookies that I'm going to use the royal icing to affix to the house, and those, as you can see, I did press some broken peanuts down into in order to give a little bit of visual interest and because I like peanuts. For this stage, you will need whatever platform you'll be building on. In this case, I am going to use this stand that I got at a local discount store for about $10. And I did drill a hole through it and take a battery pack and using double stick tape, stuck it to the bottom and then snaked up a little light kit so that I can light up whatever house I build on the platform. And you can reuse these, so it's really a great use of $10, I think. Once you have your platform, you also want your Edible Architect cookie cutter construction set, and you want to take your front/back wall and your side wall, and with those, you're going to look at the surface of your platform and determine where you would want your first 2 walls to be. So you want to make sure that the entire house will fit on whatever structure you choose, whether that platform is a stand like this, a plate, a board, a piece of cardboard, whatever your chosen medium is. But when you have those pieces there, take a pencil and draw a line in order to mark exactly where those two walls will sit on the platform. And those will give you a nice squared starting point so that you have a nice clean looking building and everything isn't askew. Finally, you also want some kind of a support so that you can lean pieces temporarily as you're building. I like to use a relatively full box of baking soda, but you can use a can of soup or whatever you have handy. And then you need your mortar. And then once you have everything, we can go ahead and get started putting everything together. So to put everything together, we will begin with what is our front wall. So look at your front and back walls. You should have two that are identical, and determine if there's one that maybe is a little bit nicer than another. So this one, for example, is nice and clean. It doesn't have any breaks or cracks. And so this will be the front wall of my house. And in order to get this in place, I'm going to add a line of icing along that bottom edge of this front wall. So take your royal icing. Add it to that bottom edge. And then stick that down along that long line that you drew on your base platform. And then you can temporarily lean it up against your support. And there we have our first wall going into place. All right, next we want to take one of our side walls. So determine which side wall I would like to go here. Let's say this one. So take your side wall and then hold it almost in place and determine where you'll need icing. So I need icing on this front edge because that will go against that front wall. And I need it along this bottom edge, which will meet the platform. So add icing to those two edges. Press your piece into place. And I like to lean the front wall forward while I press this down, and then press the front wall into the side wall, making a nice clean squared corner. And at this point you can remove your support and you'll see that we have our first two walls and a nice square corner. Next, we will be placing the other side wall. So go ahead, take that side wall, add a line of icing to each relevant edge. So at this point, that would be this edge, which will meet the front, and then this edge, which will meet the bottom or the platform. So add your icing. Press that into place. And then I like to just press all of my corners together to make sure that I get nice, clean seams. And you want everything to be pretty square. Okay, so we have three walls. Next, we will be placing our back wall. So take the back piece, and you can see this one has a little crack at the top, so I didn't choose it as my front. So we can go ahead, hold that in place. And then what we will want to do is first add a line of icing along this front edge of either side wall. And then take that back wall and add a line of icing along that bottom edge. And then take your back wall, press it down against your surface, and then press it against your two side walls. And then again, I like to just make sure I have nice clean seams, pinch everything together to get a nice squared building. And you can see very quickly we were able to assemble our base structure, and we can move on to our roof. So beginning with the back of the house, so again, that's my cracked side, I will add a line of icing along these three top edges. And then take whichever roof piece you would like to sit on the back of the house. So if there's one that's less perfect, choose that one. And then with the notch at the top of the piece, so at the peak of the roof, press that down into place over those lines of icing. And just make sure that the top edge does not protrude beyond the peak on either side of the house. And then just hold that there for a moment, and you can release. And we have our back roof in place. Now we will repeat that on the front. So add a line of icing to those three top edges, but then also a line of icing along this center roof line edge, with the exception of the notch. Do not put any icing in the notch. And then take that other roof piece, and again with the notch up toward the peak of the roof, toward the top, press that down into place and make it so that it just overlaps that back roof and creates a nice clean appearance from the front. And then just hold everything together. And we have our front roof. Now we will put together our dormer, which will sit over the notch at the top of the house, and our chimney. And we will let those dry for a little while before we place them on the structure. So to begin your dormer, take the front of your dormer and add a line of icing along either side. And then take the side of your dormer and press the front of the dormer down against your work surface and press the side of the dormer into one of those lines of icing, making a nice clean seam. And then take the other side of your dormer and repeat that on the other side. And then take the back of your dormer and add a line of icing on the inside face along each side, just like we did with the front. And then press that against those two side walls of the dormer and squeeze everything so you have nice, clean, squared edges. Okay. And then leave that to dry. We can now put our chimney together. So take the front of your chimney, add a line of icing along each side of the inside face of the chimney, and then take one of the sides of your chimney, flip it upside down, and then press the front of your chimney against your work surface, and then press the side of the chimney into one of those lines of icing. Take the other side of your chimney and repeat that on the other side. And then take the back of your chimney, add a line of icing along either side of the inside face of the chimney, and then press those against the two sides of the chimney, making nice, clean seams with squared corners. And we will give those a few moments to dry, and then we will come back, we will install our dormer, our chimney, and then put the roof pieces on our dormer, and then do the fun part, which is to decorate. Once you feel that your dormer and your chimney are sufficiently dry, you can add them to your roof line. So first, take your dormer and carefully flip it upside down and add a line of icing along every edge that will be pressing against the roof. And if it feels wobbly, be careful placing it on the roof because it may fall apart in your hands. And don't press down too hard, but you just want to hold it there long enough that you can be sure it will stay. And we're going to do a very similar process with the chimney. So we will take the chimney, which is upside down. We will add icing to all of the bottom edges and then carefully press that into place. And if you feel more comfortable waiting longer so that the icing has dried, you can certainly do so. I'm also adding some extra icing just because I want a little bit of a snowy look because it's snowy here right now. So just leave that there. And we're now ready for our final two pieces, which are the two roof pieces for our dormer. So to put those on, add a line of icing along the top three edges of one side of your dormer. And then take a roof piece and press it down into place, making sure that it does not protrude beyond the top peak of the front or back of your dormer. And then add a line of icing to the top three edges of the other side, as well as the center roof line along the piece you just installed. And then take that final roof piece and press it into place, making nice, clean edges. And there you have a completed cottage 2. And you can see it's a much more contemporary design than, for example, the cottage 1, but equally delicious. And what I think I will do now is decorate the house. So I'll probably add a little bit more snow with my royal icing. And then I will also glue on all of my little brownie brittle cookie pieces that I have. So go ahead, decorate your house, and then we will come back and do the best part, which is to light it up. I think I'm done decorating. I'm really happy with how this came out so far. So I am going to clean up and then I will come back. We can light up our house and we will be finished and ready to eat. When you're finished with your Cottage 2 cookie cutter construction set, take your box and then grab your cookie cutter construction set, which you can wash with soap and water in the sink and then let it dry really well before returning it to the plastic bag. And then your washed and dried waterproof blueprints, which you can roll back up, and return both of those to the box. And then you can put that away until you're ready to bake your next Cottage 2. If you don't have a Cottage 2 cookie cutter construction set, please visit ediblearchitect.com, and in our store you can see all of our different cookie cutter construction sets, including, of course, Cottage 2. Without further ado, I have our completed Cottage 2, which again we baked using an original recipe for brownie brittle cookies. And I decorated the house again with some brownie brittle cookies that I had pushed some nut pieces into, but I think it would be great if you did that all over the entire house. Again, I did put a light kit underneath the house and then I snaked it up inside so I can flip the switch and we will have light if I can find the light kit. And so a very symmetrical contemporary cottage and really versatile. So you can decorate this, as you can see, for any occasion, for no occasion, decorate it for any holiday, but really, really smells amazing. And I can't wait to serve this to my guests. I think this one would probably go well with chocolate ice cream, actually. Thanks so much for joining. If you did like this video, please like below and subscribe to our channel. We will be creating a lot more videos like this with new kits and new recipes, so stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Patrick, and I hope you enjoyed this. Visit us at ediblearchitect.com.